Hi, it's me again. Today I'm painting a portrait of this character from Get Out. What is his name? Shit. I forgot, I need to rewatch this movie. I haven't seen it in a little while. I don't know his name. I saw this portrait and I was like, ooh, that would be fun to paint. I liked the tear, and I liked his expression. Fuck, what's his name? His name is Chris. So I'm painting Chris from the movie Get Out. I'm using the water-soluble oils by Cobra for this painting. I've been practicing with these for the past couple of weeks and I'm really enjoying them. I've done 3 portraits now with these paints, this being the third, and I think I prefer portraits in oils than painting them with acrylics. I think oils are actually easier to use. But yeah, every time I do a portrait I usually start with the darkest parts first, which are the eyes, nose and mouth. Doing all the darkest parts first is my usual method, but with oils I'm finding the more I paint, the more I lose the deeper shades, and then I have to add them back in towards the end. So I want to try and be a little bit more precise with more paintings in the future, especially with the midtones, to try and knock over those dark bits but still keeping it loose and like impressionistic. I think it's a hard balance to find, but I am determined because I really enjoy painting with the lack of detail. It's really nice to try and like actively fight back against my insane perfectionism, which I know so many other artists deal with too. So having a more impressionistic style is really nice. It's really refreshing because I stopped enjoying the painting process when I was trying to force myself to paint every tiny little detail. Like, it just wasn't fun anymore, and I just want to have fun painting. So I just need to remember that the illusion of detail is more than enough to push a painting to look realistic, and the eyes really do fill in the rest. And sometimes simplicity with like smaller areas of focused detail is all a painting really needs. Like, it doesn't need every single tiny minute detail. Just the idea of that detail is enough. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this looser portrait style. So for me, the midtones are usually the most daunting part of a portrait because there's so many subtle shifts in the tones and shades of the skin. So I try and separate it into like 3 steps to make it easier. Oh well, like 3 steps of 3. I don't know if that makes it easier, but for me it does. So like I break it up into the darkest darks, the mid darks, and then the lightest darks, and then the darkest midtones, the midtones, and the lightest midtones, and then usually by that point my whole canvas is filled in, and then I do the highlights after there's no more like space left, and then it's the darkest highlights, the mid highlights, and then of course the lightest highlights. And I know it does really sound a bit complicated, but I promise it really does make the process easier. It makes like the reference image and colour mixing easier to break down, or in my opinion anyway. And it's like the lightest medium shade, then the lightest medium. Yeah, the lightest medium shade will still be darker than the darkest light. Does that make sense? I don't know, God, as I'm saying, I really don't know if that makes sense, but basically there's 3 categories in each dark, mid, and highlight section. And like, they don't overlap. These sections don't overlap. God, I'm gonna have to try and draw something up to explain what I mean, but that's how I break down the portrait painting process to try and make it easier on my brain to see the colours and the shades. I do go back and forth a lot when painting, but I do try and stick to this kind of order. And I find this also makes it easier then to add in those subtle tone changes, because once you have the right shade mixed, or the right shade, once you have the right like depth of colour, God, what's it called? Once your colour is dark or light enough, you can then add colours to adjust the hue slightly to make it a little richer in pigment for, like, you know, the blushed areas of the cheeks or the nose or the lips. Like, it's easier then to adjust the colours when you know how dark or how light they need to be. God, I need to work on explaining things better. The brightest highlights are absolutely my favourite step when painting, and I do find they bring the painting to life every time, especially with the eyes. But with oils, I'm struggling to make them bright. I guess my method of putting all the midtones down to then, you know, fill the canvas doesn't work great when the paint is still wet and then your bright colours are mixing with the darker colours underneath. It worked fine for acrylics because the acrylics would dry quick. But not as much for oils, so I think with these two issues, I think I need to maybe readjust my method of painting, which is scary but exciting. I've painted this way for a couple of years now, of doing the darkest first and then filling it all in with the mids and then adding the highlights on top. So to not do that feels strange, but I'm excited to try out different ways of painting. I'm really happy with how this portrait came out. It's not perfect, it was just a quick study. I think I maybe spent around an hour on it. I really like how the tear came out. I think adding the little white highlights really made it pop. As always, the whites always make the painting pop. Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I love painting portraits that depict like strong emotions, and I love using horror movie stills as painting study references, and I feel like the two kind of go hand in hand, so it looks perfect. I love horror movies, and yeah, I love painting weird shit, so it's perfect. I think I'm gonna keep painting more horror characters. I really enjoy doing it. I did Nikki from Obsession lately, and I also did a close-up of Jennifer from Jennifer's Body, of her mouth. Yeah, so if you want to see more horror paintings, I would love to paint some more. If there are any characters you would like to see painted, let me know. If there are any horror movies you would recommend that you've enjoyed lately, I would also love to know. Thank you so much for watching my video and my painting. I will see you in the next one. Bye!